Welcome to episode 259 of the Comic Watchers. I'm Chad. Matt has the night off, but that's fine because he's missing a great guest, Anthony Del Cole, who just before the show we were chatting, and I interviewed him years ago during the pandemic when he did a short comic series about the impeachment of a certain president, and then the royal family, and I think we also during that time we also talked about Kill Nancy Drew. But
Yes, yes.
tonight, our main focus, we can get into all that too, but we're going to be talking about Romeo versus Juliet kills the Shakespeare. So, but before we do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, both as a comic book reader and as a creator?
Well, first, I'd like to talk about myself as the new co-host for the show, since Matt has not appeared, and if he's watching or if he's listening right now, I'm very upset that you're not here. And as such, I'm organizing a coup d'état, bloody if necessary, and I'm going to take over your spot. So, sorry, Matt. It's been a good run. But it's time for some professionalism now. No, just kidding, Matt. You're very missed if you are watching or listening right now. As you said, I'm very happy to introduce myself, Anthony Delcall. I'm a writer of comics, podcasts, theater, all different medium. If it's something that can be read or performed, I'm sure I've written something in that sort of format. People listening in about comics. I've been doing comics now for about 16 years now. Wow, it's been that long. It's almost a decade and a half. I started off with Kill Shakespeare, which we're here to talk about, or a continuation or a remix of Kill Shakespeare with Romeo versus Juliet. Started off with Kill Shakespeare with my collaborators Connor McCreer and Andy Belanger back in 2010. Was the very first issue in the first volume of the series. And since then, I've done numerous series. I've worked with Marvel and Luke Cage, Everyman. I've done The Death of Nancy Drew and Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, The Big Lie with Dynamite. I've done 4 books of Assassin's Creed for Titan Comics. I have done Son of Hitler for Image. I have done, there are 5 volumes of Kill Shakespeare. I feel like there's a bunch that I'm forgetting. I've had about 14, 15 books published. And then what you're referring to was a series of digital comics, nonfiction digital comics with Business Insider, formerly Insider. And with them, I put out about 20 different stories over the span of 3 years. Some of them were about the first impeachment of Donald Trump, President Donald J. Trump, the royal family in terms of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, which was read by millions of people. It's ridiculous. It's the number of people. It's the most read thing I've ever done, I think. And then the last the last 10 stories that we did there, myself and the team, were actually about, as I like to say, real life superheroes. They were real individuals who are fighting against authoritarianism, against horrible regimes, against oppression. And for one of those stories, I escaped a Chinese internment camp, which was released in 2022, I think. I was the recipient, along with my team, of the Pulitzer Prize for illustrated reporting commentary. So I think I'm only the second comics writer to ever win a Pulitzer. First one being, some guy named Art Spiegelman. I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of him.
I don't know.
I think he's a one and done guy. He's sort of a hack.
I
So
hear big things. There's a buzz around him.
He's a young up and comer. So I mean, I've had a very wide career, done some really cool stories in the comic space, and then of late I've been doing a lot of stuff in the audio and podcast space. So my most recent title is a provocative title called "Don't Listen to This." It's a BBC thriller that was released in December and January of this year. A thriller set in the world of esports. And I was just nominated for an Ambie Award, which is the Oscars of the podcast community for best script writing fiction. So I didn't win. I found out on Monday. Don't cry for me, Argentina. But yeah, I thoroughly love writing comics. I love writing in podcasts. The communities in both are small and supportive. I mean, these are the two mediums that I just thoroughly love, and so I'm blessed and honored to be able to work in the both of them these days.
Yeah, and I think when I first met you at New York Comic Con, I forget what year it was. It was you were doing Son of Hitler. That was you had the thing that you were, you know, working with at the time, and so that's that was my introduction to your work.
Well, I mean, you picked a good starter pistol on that one. For those that don't know, Son of Hitler, Image Comics it's a World War II historical espionage tale. It's based on a real life story. There was a legend that when Hitler was stationed in France in the First World War, he fathered a child. So in our story, we take that as a what if, and so it's about a young female spy, darkest days of World War II, hears about this legend, looks into it, researches, and discovers that it's true. Tracks the kid down. He's now in his mid-20s, northern France, baker's apprentice, no idea who his father is. And she says, look, I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. Good news is you've always wanted to know who your papa is. Bad news is he's Adolf Hitler, the worst human on the planet. And so she recruits him to become the ultimate Trojan horse, get in close to his father and kill him and end World War II. And so we find out how Hitler died in the bunker and then beyond, because the death of Adolf Hitler is not the end of the Hitler family saga. That's all I can say about it. But that's with Jeff McCumsey and Jeff Moore and Jeff McClelland. I was surrounded by Jeffs on that project. And by the way, I forgot to also mention that I'm Canadian, so I say project and schedule and weird things. And I have a boot. And if I drink maple syrup over the course of this, it's just a natural thing. But I'm sure you're going to tariff me at 25% on that, Chad. So I appreciate that these days. So, but yeah, Son of Hitler is a great story, and it's still. People always ask me, especially at comic conventions, which is the favorite work of mine, like which is the one that which is my favorite that I've ever written. And I always tell them, look, it's like choosing your child. You can't say this is my favorite. Having said that, there's different things about each story that I've done that I enjoy the most. In terms of Son of Hitler, I think that's the best twist ending I've ever come up with. It was something that I came up with maybe about 3/4 of the way in the writing process. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, what if we change our story and ended it this way? And just it changed the story for the better. Luke Cage has some really heart-wrenching emotional moments that I'm proud of writing. Kill Shakespeare is a special place in my heart because it was the first project that I ever did. And then the death of Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys, The Big Lie, because the first chapter I think is the best in terms of tone I've caught. And I mean, I have to give a plug obviously for Romeo versus Juliet, which is what we're talking about today. I mean, it's special because it gives me a chance to return to my first love, I guess you could say, and kind of re-explore and spend more time with it. You know, it's sort of like your first love or your first child goes off to school, goes off to university, you don't see them for a while, and all of a sudden they come back and you get to spend some quality time with them. And that's what working on Romeo versus Juliet and now releasing the book is for me. It's a chance to kind of go back to that first love or the firstborn child and spend some very valuable time with them, and and hopefully a lot of other people will spend time with it too.
So, what's the history behind the Kill Shakespeare series? Because it sounds like your first kid got into some legal issues or something.
I mean, Kill Shakespeare, yes. I'm very fortunate. You always hear, whenever you talk to anyone about breaking in stories or origin stories in the comic space, people always tell you about how many scripts they wrote or how many books they wrote or indie stuff that they did before they were actually able to break it in and make a bit of a headway in the industry. I'm very fortunate, knock on wood, that Kill Shakespeare was the first comic I had really ever written or co-written along with Connor. And he did a lot of heavy lifting, especially in the first couple issues, because he had a little more experience of writing at the time. But yeah, that was the first comic that we'd ever done and ever pitched. And lo and behold, it turned into like a series of 5 graphic novels, and now continuation, a board game, a stage show, an audio drama, and help for TV at one point. So something Connor McCreary and I came up with the idea back in 2003. Yes, that's many, many, many years ago. We were just doing a brainstorming session, and the title Kill Bill came up, the Tarantino movies. And then we're like, we're like, oh wow, what if that was a video game? That'd be really cool, but it's probably already been done, or they're probably doing it. So what if it was a different Bill, and somehow we came to Kill Bill Shakespeare, and we immediately thought, oh yeah, it's all of his characters together on a quest to hunt him down and kill him. I'm like, that is such a cool story. I need to find out who's done that and read it. And it turned out that no one had actually done that. And so Connor and I looked at each other. We're like, well, if nobody else has done it, I think this is what we should do. Like it's our destiny, it's our fate. And so we sat down and we worked on it. You know, we were both busy with full-time jobs at the time, so we worked on it whenever we could, develop the story, and then put together a small amount. We raised a small amount of funding to get so we could pay for all the artwork and the publishing and stuff like that. Went to New York Comic Con in February of 2009, and then we basically sold it there. I mean, we're back in that was back when you can go to New York Comic Con and you have all the main editor in chiefs or all the editors in chief, editors at the comic shop, at comic publishers. They would all be there, and you could like just go up to the booths and start conversations with them. So by the end of the weekend, we had 3 offers. We had another 2 within another 2 weeks, and we decided to go with IDW at the time. Like I said, it was a great. I loved it. It was a great process. Like I said, we put out 5 books with IDW, and then we put together a collected omnibus. Omnibus that collected the first 2 volumes of Backstage Edition. And then IDW went through some problems. Most of the people that were there when we came on left the company, and it was sort of stuck in limbo. And so we had to kind of fight to get the licensing rights back. I don't want to go into too much detail, and I don't think I'm technically allowed to go into too much detail. But no, I was able to. The lawyers were involved. We had to negotiate a package and that sort of thing, but we were able to extricate the comic book licensing rights as well as the board game rights back from IDW. We were able to get the rights back for film and TV from Universal. We were able to get back all the stage rights had been retained. All the other rights that we'd licensed out, we will all get them back around the time of the pandemic. So maybe the first time when we chatted. And so that took a while. And then it was in the midst of the pandemic that I was sitting back, and I knew the rights were going to come back. And we knew that we wanted to relaunch Kill Shakespeare, because people have been asking every single time I go to New York Comic Con or any other show, they're like, when are you going to put out new books? So many people come up to my table every single year, like, okay, so when do you have the new one yet? I'm like, not yet. We're talking to IDW, blah, blah, blah. So while we were in the midst of the pandemic, I sat back. I was like, okay, I want to do this. What's the story I want to tell? And an image came to mind, and it was an image of Juliet and Romeo in a high noon Western style showdown. Romeo on one side, Juliet on the other side, and all of a sudden I was just like, it just got me excited, and like how would you even, like a light bulb went off, and I just got goosebumps. I was like, wait, what is that story? And that was the beginning of Romeo versus Juliet. And so it was the showdown. I'm like, okay, well, it's a showdown, so that means it's Western. So I've been looking for years to do a story in the Western genre. So I was like, this is great. It could be an Elizabethan Western. And so, yeah, I kind of backtracked from there. And, I'd already, as someone who's already been a fan of the genre, I already knew a lot of the tropes and knew what the constructs of a Western story, but I continued to do more research and rewatch the classics and reread the classics and stuff like that. And yeah, kind of built the story out from there. And that's gets us to today with Romeo versus Juliet. And, I'm excited to get out in the world. It's our little magnificent Shakespeare 7, as we like to call it. It's the storyline is very simple. Juliet is a warrior for hire, and she's hired basically to protect a small town like a border town nunnery from invading forces, which include her ex Romeo Montague. And so she has to rally her old friends together, namely Hamlet, Othello, Puck, and others. And so while they're prepping, while they're getting ready for the oncoming battle, they start to investigate, and they realize that all is not what it appears to be. In the small border town, there's magic there. There's fantasy. There's violence. There's mystery. There's science. There's drugs. But at its core, it's an examination of love, like love stories. Because we're taking the greatest love story of all time, arguably Romeo and Juliet, and this is almost like the sequel to it. Like, what happens if they both survived, they didn't kill each other? Where would they be a couple years down the road? And oh, by the way, did I forget to mention that Juliet's also pregnant? So that throws a wrench into all of it, and she's trying to figure it, and she doesn't know if the father of the child is Romeo or if it's Hamlet. So it's the ultimate love triangle, if you will.
So when you were, preparing to tell the story, did you go back and kind of read the Shakespeare works that you're, kind of riffing off of, or kind of to get the feel and the voice for the characters again?
Sorry, who's the Shakespeare person you reference here? I've never heard of him. I didn't go and reread Romeo and Juliet. I didn't reread I didn't reread it, but I mean, I did read some sections of it.
Mhm.
Rewatch some like the Baz Luhrmann film, of course. Um, and and just read a lot about it, and mainly it was just thinking about it, researching it, and analyzing some of the themes from the original play, some of the things that I wanted to explore, figure out how those themes could cross pollinate, I guess, in the story. But no, I didn't go back and do a completely reread of Romeo and Juliet or of Hamlet or some of the other ones. I mean, obviously, I did go back and do a reread of the original Kill Shakespeare books and realize that they're horrible. And the one of the co-writers is a complete hack. He has no business being in, like, he should renounce all of his awards and everything like that. That he should just like leave the industry completely. No, no. I mean, so I didn't reread it, but I mean, I researched a lot. I reread certain sections, and one of the people I always like to give props to is every time we try to bring a Shakespeare consultant in, that will kind of make sure that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed from a Shakespeare perspective. If our these are thous and our thous are these. I'm trying to think of what the
Mhm.
proper. And this time around is Dr. Toby Malone, and he had consulted with us on a few occasions. He dramaturged. I still don't know if it's dramaturged or dramaturged. This Kill Shakespeare stage production. An
Mhm.
incredible guy. He's Australian but lives in Toronto. He's Australian Canadian mate bloke, whatever the terminology is. Fantastic guy. So I mean, he came on not at the beginning of the process of writing Romeo versus Juliet, but sort of as I was after I'd done like the first draft. And he kind of like
Mhm.
came in and helped out and flesh out some of the characters, help out immensely with the actual dialogue. Again, make sure that these are proper and the thous are proper, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, because one of the things is we can't if I made a bunch of errors with the Shakespeare elements and the Shakespeare references, then a core contingent of our audience are Shakespeare fans and readers,
Mhm.
and bardolaters, as they call themselves, or some people do. So if we tick them off, they would not be very happy, and we'd lose a core part of our audience. So it's important to keep them happy and make sure that everything is there. Toby was the one actually very interestingly said that we should have a Kill Shakespeare wiki page, just to not for the fans, but more for us, because we're all like, oh, was that character okay? Where was that character in? That was like it was issue 2 on these pages here, but did she come back in like issue 11? I can't remember, but we want to bring her back. And how did she end in that one? Yeah, so it's very elaborate because we're dealing not only with all the Shakespeare characters and want to make sure that they're true to who they were and in the original plays, but also in the Kill Shakespeare world, because now that we have 5 volumes and counting, I mean, there's a lot of story to remember, and I'm not that smart a guy, as anyone who's been listening to this can attest to. And this is the reason why Matt is not in the episode tonight. He's like, this guy, God, snooze, Shakespeare, boring.
Yeah, I think that's probably the reason he heard Shakespeare and he thought I was asking him to read it, all the plays, and so he's like, I mean, it was I think it was 10th grade or was it my freshman year of high school that we had to learn the balcony scene and quote it.
There you go. To be fair to Matt, though, I mean, he has a problem reading anything, whether it's Shakespeare or anything else. So, I mean, see, he's not here, so I'm allowed to make fun of him as much as possible. It's not behind his back because people are listening to this, so it's on them.
So, is there a certain character in the series that you have grown attached to, or you know, would possibly like to explore more?
I mean, the answer is yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. What's interesting is that the Kill Shakespeare, the first 2 volumes, focused. The main character was Hamlet,
Hmm.
and that's because Hamlet is, in my opinion, the greatest character ever written. A lot of people dispute that, especially especially Shakespeare fans. in academics. But I think that Hamlet is the most fascinating character ever written. So to me, it seemed inevitable or natural for him to be the lead, for lack of a better term, in the first two volumes. As the story went on, we discovered that Juliet was calling out to us quite a bit. I mean, she was there. She was more than more than the love interest. She was kind of like, if Hamlet was 1A, she's 1B. But as the series gone on, especially in volume 3 and then volume 4 to some extent, it seemed as though she was calling out to become more of the 1A and Hamlet to be the 1B. So it's really interesting how those two characters they're still at the forefront, especially in this one, since it's the two of them and Romeo. Those are the three main characters in this. But yeah, what's great about this is that having had years, like many years of having a project put on hiatus for a number of years, it gave me the opportunity to kind of like take a step back and re-examine the characters. And so I feel like I've added a couple new layers to each of them. I mean, Hamlet is a little more Hamlet-y, if you could say. He's a little more witty. He's a little more insecure. He's a little more outgoing and gregarious than he was when we first met him in Kill Shakespeare. And Juliet is kind of the same way. She's almost the opposite, where she's a little more morose, a little more contemplative, a little quieter. But that's also because she's been through a lot. And also she's pregnant and she's trying to run away. She's concerned about whether she can be a good mother. She's concerned about where the child is from in terms of even she's not sure if it's Hamlet or Juliet, or if the father's Hamlet or Romeo. There's a lot of shame that she feels, not only about this, but about her past with Romeo. So she's dealing with a lot of stuff. So in terms of like which ones, I mean, those two characters I just loved writing for, and I continue to love writing, and I want to continue writing those characters because they're fantastic. In terms of in addition to that, Puck is an amazing character. I mean, as anyone that knows their Shakespeare, especially those that have read or studied Midsummer Night's Dream, Puck is an incredible character. And he's weaved into this story, but I wanted to be able to do more. I just didn't have enough space. And the story and the characters they tell you how much involvement they should have. Just like a little toddler, like, I don't want to do this. But no, so I mean, I wanted to put him in a little bit more often, and I had him in a little bit more often, but it just wasn't feeling right in terms of the story and in terms of all the other characters. So he's in there, not to the extent that I originally thought he would be. But he's a character that I really want to explore even more, because I don't know if you've had a chance to read the book yet, but the story ends without any spoilers. He shows like he's there on the final page when there's a small twist, I guess you could say, and that sort of hints at some bigger things that could happen in future books if we're so lucky to be able to tell more stories.
Now, are there any other characters that you haven't used that you would like to eventually bring into the story?
This is my favorite question. Yes. I mean, Shakespeare has written hundreds of amazing characters, and we've only tapped into maybe about, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 of them thus far. The one that stands out, my favorite Shakespearean comedy is Much Ado About Nothing.
Mhm.
And so I desperately want to tell a story with both Beatrice and Benedick from the original play. At one point I tried to get Beatrice into this one, but it just didn't feel right because she deserves the spotlight. So I have in my mind a story that's a little more lighthearted than what we've seen in some Kill Shakespeare versions, because every Kill Shakespeare story has been we played with different genre. The first two books was sort of like fantasy, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. Volume 3 was more of a horror, set on Prospero's Island, and there's magic and there's hallucinations and creatures and stuff like that. Volume 4 was pirate adventure. Volume 5 was Connors, where he was sort of like a flashback story of Juliet. This one is now a Western. And there's one that I want to it won't be straight out romantic comedy or romance, but I want to deal with something a little more lighthearted. There's a heist story I want to tell, but yeah, especially Beatrice, because Beatrice is to me the most fascinating, other than perhaps Lizzie Bennet from Pride and Prejudice. I find that she's the most fascinating rom-com, for lack of a better term, or romance female lead that's ever been written. So I mean, I want to be able to tell a story with her and have her at the center of it, or at least near the center of the story.
So is writing how well how different is writing the Kill Shakespeare stuff different from doing the more the reality based works? Is there a different mindset that you have to put yourself in, or is it easier, harder?
It's all hard. It's at the end of the day, it's all hard. I mean, nothing comes easy. There's just different ways. I mean, at its core, the similarities between, say, the nonfiction stuff I've done with Business Insider and something like with Romeo versus Juliet is, I mean, at its core, the similarities are it's all about one character. What do they want? What are the obstacles they have to overcome? And where do they find themselves at the end? I mean, really, that's the essence of good storytelling. How do they change along the way? Do they change? And if so, how do they change? So, I mean, in that sense, it's kind of the same, but there are a lot of differences. In the nonfiction stuff I've done with Business Insider, I'm writing it, but they're real life individuals. Like these are real life superheroes, real life people who've fought against the atrocities and et cetera, et cetera. So I sit down with them. I do, myself and my editor Walt Hickey. We sat down with a number of them over Zoom or or Signal or whatever. Yes, Signal. I've had I've had to work on Signal, and it's no state secrets or government secrets. There are war plans, though, so unfortunate. But no, I mean, we're sitting down for hours at a time, and I'm asking them questions. I'm probing deeper, find out what happened to them, give me more details, elaborate on this, and then I'm taking that a transcript, and then I'm almost editing it. I'm not writing. I'm not, because I'm taking their actual voices, their stories, and I'm deciding how to put it into the framework of this is who this person is, this is what they want, here are the obstacles, here's what they had to overcome, and here's where they are at the end. In something like Romeo versus Juliet, I mean, it's completely because I'm making up this stuff. I'm making this up. But I mean, again, it's following the same journey. And obviously I'm creating the language, but I have Dr. Toby Malone coming in, and he's aiding me along the way. So I mean, dialogue is different, structure is slightly different. They're different beasts, but both of them are A, both hard, and B, both fulfilling. I mean, one of the great things about winning the Pulitzer was that it led to more people reading the story about the Uyghur genocide that's happening. Because there are so many people that just do not know that there's anywhere from 1 to 2 million people that the Chinese authorities are trying to eradicate completely because they're Muslim, because they have their own distinct and unique and fascinating culture. And the Chinese government doesn't like that. And so they're trying to get rid of these people. Small tangent. At American Library Association last year in San Diego, I was there to promote Romeo versus Juliet like almost a year in advance. And so there was a company there, and I apologize, I can't remember the exact name of the company, but there's like a Chinese publishing house. And so all they do is publish like, hey, our leader is so great. Xi Jinping is such a great guy, and here's a biography of him and smiling, and we got big pictures, like posters of him all over the booth. It's a big booth too. And so I brought the printed copy of I Escaped a Chinese Internment Camp, which was published by Lev Gleason and came out last year. And so I brought it over to them, and there were 2 women and an older man. So the 2 women, I was like, hey, I don't know. I introduced myself. I said, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's a genocide happening in your country. I have a book here. I'd love for you to read this, maybe educate yourself. And the 2 women were like, oh, we had no idea this is happening. Like, thank you for giving this to us. We'll read through it. Thank you so much. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You're just covering it up. The other guy, I went up to him and said, oh, I'm not sure if you're aware there's a genocide happening in the Xinjiang region. Here's a copy of the book if you'd like to read about it and find out more. He looks at it, he gets mad. He was sitting there, and he stands up. He's like, that's a lie. This is false. This is this woman. If she went to prison, I was like, no, it's not. She was in prison for 62 days, and she was beaten and tortured and sterilized and everything. And he's like, no, if that happened, then she deserved to be in prison. She's a criminal. And I have a nephew that lives there, and I've been there before, and there are no prisons. This is complete propaganda. This doesn't happen. And we caught it on video. But one of the people at the distributor, Diamond, said like she erased the footage because she's like, I just don't feel good about it. I feel as though I might get someone in trouble. I'm like, well, there's 2 million people that are in trouble too, so let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Anyways, but yeah, so I mean, even like the Chinese government is trying to completely whitewash this, or just have people look the other way. And they would love for nothing. They would love for that to happen for this. And so I'm glad to be able to shine a spotlight on these characters, just like with, again, bringing it back to Romeo versus Juliet. It's great to be able to shine a spotlight on Shakespeare's characters and get new readers or new fans of Shakespeare. I mean, the greatest feedback I receive are from students or from teachers. In the former case, they tell me that, I read Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet and I just didn't like it. But then I read Kill Shakespeare. My cool aunt gave me Kill Shakespeare. I read it. I consumed it. I loved it. And now I'm excited about reading Hamlet next year. Or teachers who talk about how they give it to their students and it's as a gateway drug, and students will read this and then get into Shakespeare, but also in many cases get into comics too.
So when you're writing, like I escaped the Chinese, do you is there a sense of, you know, feeling, that you're putting yourself in danger by doing so,
Well, I mean,
or making yourself a target?
I mean, after internment camp came out, there were many attempts to hack into my phone. Like, everyone gets the typical phishing attempts these days. Those are all the farms in Indonesia, Cambodia, where is it exactly? Where they're just trying to get your credit card information and try to get a bunch of money out of you. But no, I had so many phishing attempts and my phone acted weird on a number of occasions. I'm like, I think people are trying to hack my phone right now. Same thing with when we published a piece about Afreen Fatima, who's a student activist in India, whose family home was bulldozed by the Modi government there. My phone started acting a little weird too, as well, shortly after that. No, but I mean, before we recorded, even today, living in the U.S., and even though I'm American and Canadian citizen, there's some reticence because I've written pieces about our current president, which were completely fact-based, but I do have a little fear when I come back. I go back to Canada in a couple of weeks and I'm back here. There's part of me that's like, am I going to get flagged at the border for that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird to think about my own country now that my wife and I have lived here for over 10 years, that they might not be completely happy with what I've done, but no, I don't feel that dangerous. And if I ever do, I think about the people that whose stories I'm telling. And you know how I mentioned, this will be the third time I mentioned it. So real life superheroes, and I really view them as real life superheroes because, I mean, Afreen is a perfect example. Student activist. She's spoken out against the anti-Muslim policies of the Modi government in India. Because of that, her family home was bulldozed. She's received threats death threats and more, and even worse, from people all over the country. She's sort of in hiding right now, and her father's been in prison now for 2.5 years on completely bogus charges. And despite all that, she's still speaking up. She's not afraid to raise her voice and make people aware of it. Like some of these people that I've spoken to, especially Afreen, I'm afraid one day I'll just pick up, I'll start to read the news and I'll find out that she's been killed. And again, the reason for it is because she's spoken up. So I mean, I think I feel privileged. Wow, I get emotional here. I feel privileged to have been able to tell their story over the years. And shine a spotlight on what they do. I'm very proud of it. Very proud of it, and very happy with. I'm very happy with what I've done. And although I'm not doing anything with Business Insider right now, I'm having very early discussions with a couple places about bringing these sorts of stories back, because I think they're very effective and very powerful.
So let's move on to your work with the podcasts and stuff like that, writing for podcasts. Um, Tell us a little bit about that, and how does that differ from writing for a comic?
Well, in terms of podcasts, I think I make a far better host than Matt ever would be or ever has been. So, Matt, if you're still listening, if you haven't tuned out yet, I'm still in the running for your gigs, for your job. So I'm coming after you. Watch out. Um, I love writing for podcasts. Um, when I was a little kid growing up in northern Canada, my local radio station slash country radio station, on Sunday mornings early, they used to play the old, replay or rebroadcast the old classic radio serials and dramas from the 1940s and 50s. So like The Shadow with Orson Welles, The
Mhm.
Lone Ranger, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, that sort of stuff. And I used to wake up early on Sunday mornings. My parents thought it was crazy. Why are you waking up early to listen to this? And I loved it. I would just sit back, I'd listen to it on the radio, and my imagination just would completely take over of what these actors or characters would look like. I just loved it. And here we are years later. And I get to write fiction and nonfiction. I get to write especially fiction stories. And it's sort of like coming full circle for me. It's a great medium. It's much like it's even smaller than comics, especially fiction podcasts. We all know how big podcasts are, and I mean, I not only do I write fiction podcasts, I produce a biweekly nonfiction podcast series, and I've written nonfiction stuff for Wondery and some other places, but the fiction space is small, but it's got so much potential and it's so fun. The most recent one that I talked or that you mentioned, don't listen to this, or that I mentioned. We produced it in London back in October. BBC flew me out for it, so I was involved with all the actors who were and are phenomenal, and I just loved being in the room in the production studio with them and helping them develop the characters. Develop the characters and just like it's like putting on a show. It's put on a
Mhm.
show, and then that's one of the things I love about comics too, where it's a small group of people. We're all talented. Well, except myself excluded. We're all talented, and we're coming together because we love something. We're passionate about an idea. We're not getting paid huge amounts of money. It's not like It's more passion than it is. It's more passion project or labor of love than it is something we're doing just for the money. And so, yeah, we're putting on a show in comics. Like it's myself with Romeo versus Juliet. It's myself. It's Stefan Toshev, the incredibly amazing illustrator. It's Becca Carey, the letterer. It's Don Guzzo, the designer. Tommy Malote, the Shakespeare consultant. J.C. Bond from Gemstone. The publisher. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze too. Oh, I know. That's a mark against me. Now Matt's laughing. He's like, he's allergic to becoming the co-host. But yeah, so I mean, I like the difference. The differences in it is that when it comes to comics, every time I sit down to develop a scene, my question is, how is the scene going to be interesting visually, in terms of setting, in terms of emotion, in terms of dialogue, in terms of flow of pages, in terms of like panel structure, et cetera, et cetera. With audio, sorry, I think allergies are kicking in at this very moment. So if I sound like Kermit the Frog, that's why. In terms of audio, the first question when I'm developing any scene is how am I going to make this one sort of interesting from an audio perspective? So in
Mhm.
terms of location, in terms of who's in the scene, in terms of understanding. So I mean, it's to have two people talking like this is okay, but since it's fiction, like, wouldn't it be cool if this was set at a video arcade, like an old school video arcade, or in the middle of a spaceship, or in the middle of like a Grand Central Station,
Mhm.
or on a train, on a bus, on a subway, like on a platform, like it's or in a car with like country music or like a radio drama playing back, whatever. So that's always the first thing, and conceptually, it's also the same thing. Like the audio dramas slash fiction podcast, whatever you want to call it. Wow, the first thing I always think, I want to make there has to be like a strong audio element to it. So don't listen to this. No spoilers here, but you eventually discover that it's a race to track down an audio clip from from an abandoned video game, a cutscene from an abandoned video game that if you listen to audio, within an hour you die. So it's basically The Ring set in the world of esports. And again, that's audio centric. When I did an Assassin's Creed adaptation for Audible and Ubisoft, that was about the main character played by Riz Ahmed, was a blind assassin. So I mean, so he doesn't see exactly what's happening, just like the listener is not seeing this, but he or she or they can interpret what exactly is happening in terms of like where they are, where the people are talking, what the space is like. So you can kind of just sort of make it come to life through your imagination. So everything has to have that audio first feel. And I mean, it's the same thing with comics. Like when I am developing a story, sometimes the story will just come to me. I'll be like, wow, I'd love to set a story and set it in the world of X. And so the first question is, well, is that an audio drama? Sorry, my ride's outside if you can hear. Is that an audio drama? Is that comic? Is it film or TV? Is it theater? Is it is it a video game? Like, what is it? It all kind of depends on what the story is. Like if it's a story about two people sitting down and talking, I'm like, well, that's a play. That's not going to be a comic book. But if it's two people talking and it turns out it's a road trip, okay, well, maybe that could be an audio drama, it could be something else, but they're in the middle of a road trip and they're in a spaceship and they're traveling through here, or through, it's a time machine, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, there's the visual element right there. Again, that's not my pitch. I'm just coming up with examples. So, but no, I mean, to get back to the original question, yeah, there's differences. But at the end of the day, I mean, everything comes back to story. And I feel like in a lot of audio dramas, there's a lot of bad audio dramas. And I don't think that's a controversial statement, because a lot of people during the podcasting gold rush of 2016 to 2022, maybe, there's so many people who are like, hey, I can't get this TV show, I can't get this film, I can't get this comic book off the ground. Oh, podcasting is hot, let's do it as that. And it kind of feels that way. And the main characters are not very dynamic, and it doesn't feel like it's audio first. And so it's great for me to kind of have the ability to kind of figure out what genre or what medium I want to tell the story in, with experience in a range of them.
So, um, are there any writers from any medium that kind of have influenced you or your style?
That's a good question, and one I don't think I get often enough. Wow. There's a little known writer by the name of Billy Shakespeare, Billy Bob Shakespeare. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. All roads lead back to Shakespeare. So he's kind of
Read a
influenced
couple of
me.
his things, I think.
Yeah, he's written about 1 or 2 or 38 successful plays. 37, 38, depending on who you talk to. I mean, all joking aside, I mean, Shakespeare obviously is an influence for not only Romeo versus Juliet and Kill Shakespeare, but just writing in general, because I mean, he's the greatest entertainer and writer of all time. I mean, creating the greatest characters. Other writers, the first one that comes to mind, or first one I'll name check, is Michael Chabon. Sorry, I would say Chabon. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm from Canada and I think it's French Canadian. Not only is he a great writer, but the Amazing Adventures of Kathleen Clay. I don't know if you've read it, or anyone watching or listening to this have read it. Or sorry, for those that haven't, go out right now, buy the book, read it. You will not regret it. It's one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. And not only is it a great book, but also inspired me to do Kill Shakespeare, to be honest, because I read that and I loved the plucky story of these 2 cousins who come up with this idea for this superhero character, and they decide they're going to go out and do this, and they get it done. And of course there's strife and drama and everything like that. But reading through that, I was like, you know what? This Kill Shakespeare idea that Connor and I have been kicking around, what if we do that as a comic book? So that I would not be where I am today without that book. And I have the honor of, in April of 2010, at WonderCon in San Francisco, when we first launched Kill Shakespeare. That was the very first show we ever went to with a copy in our hands that we were able to sell. It was the official launch. Michael Chabon Michael Chabon happened to be there because he was promoting. Dark Horse had done the Escapist comics of the Escapist, the character from Cavalier and Clay, and so he was there. And so I was like, well, I have to go up and say hi. And so I went up, I introduced myself, and I said, like, I shook his hand. I was like, thank you for the inspiration, for inspiring me to do this. This book would not be, this comic series would not be in existence if it wasn't for you. And he was very humble and very nice. And he had his son at the time, I believe. I think he had his son there. And they were cosplaying, I think, as Doctor Who characters or Sherlock Holmes. I think it was Doctor Who. I've got a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, so I feel very honored to have been able to have met one of my heroes. And then the other one, I think the other one that I'll name check here. I mean, in terms of comics, I feel like I need to name check some in comics. There's two that are head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of my favorites. And they're not going to be, I know it's a cliche to use, to reference them, but Brian K. Vaughan and Ed Brubaker. I mean, they, especially when I read the first volume of Why the Last Man, again, I read that roughly the same time that I read Cavalier and Clay. So it was a combination of reading those two books that just made me realize that, oh my gosh, like this, I want to write comics. And I mean, Brian K. Vaughan kind of opened my mind as to what comics could be in terms of genres, in terms of the way of, in terms of structure and everything like that. I mean, I follow so closely. I've learned so much just from reading. And yes, I was able to meet him once, awkward exchange, but still. And then Ed Brubaker, to me, I have his most recent one. I think his most recent one, the blood one, the horror one. It's over on my bookshelf over there. I can't see it. I apologize. I'm sure they're listening and go, well, this guy doesn't know anything. And Matt's laughing, going like, you want to be host? You can't even name Ed Brubaker and Phillips' most recent one. Who is this hack that's trying to replace me? But I love their stories. Like, they're so prolific, him and Sean Phillips. And they write to tone. It's incredibly hard and incredibly important to write to a specific tone. And they're able to the two of them are able to work on that and write and draw to it. And it's inspiring. Like, I just love, see, that's why I haven't read the most recent one, just because it's very rare for me to find a book these days or find creators in any medium where I'm just like, you know what? I want to sit back and I just want to enjoy this. It's almost like I want to go out to a cabin in the woods, get a nice fire going, and just be like, I'm going to spend one night, I'm just going to read through the entire book. I just love it so much. It's one of my favorite experiences in the world. I just be able to sit back and read a new Brubaker and Phillips collab. So take that, Matt. How's that? And my other hero is Matt, of course. And that's why I want to replace him on the show.
Matt's my hero too.
Did you ever know that you're my hero?
So, looking back on your career, how do you feel that you've grown as a writer, and what was the best advice that someone ever gave you that you were able to use?
Have I grown as a writer? Well, yes. I mean, the simple answer is yes. I will look back at the first 4 or 5 books that I did, and I am my own worst critic. I will be able to point out anything, even Romeo versus Juliet. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you what I don't like about this. I know that's probably not good for me. If anyone's watching, for those that are watching or listening, it's a great book. Go out and buy it. It comes out on April 23rd. And it's amazing, and you're gonna enjoy it. No, I am my own worst critic. I look back at the stuff I wrote, like the first 4 or 5 books, and I just be like, I wish I had a chance to go in and rewrite it, because I can see the errors. I've learned so much along the way about writing, about character, about plot, about dialogue. I feel like dialogue, when I started, I relied a lot on Connor to do the heavy lifting on that in the first couple books of Kill Shakespeare. But now I feel like that's actually becoming a very strong, like an asset that I have. I think so, of course. We'll see what reviewers say about Romeo versus Juliet coming April 23rd. In terms of advice, um, not advice, but a moment. So Connor and I were very lucky, very fortunate to have been selected to take part in the Sundance Institute New Frontier Story Lab. As we know, the Sundance Institute, they were created by Robert Redford. They do the Sundance Film Festival in Utah, although in 2027 it's going to switch to Boulder, Colorado. But they also do a number of like story labs for creators. So a lot of version was just in film. So you'd have a story lab for screenwriters and for directors and editors and that sort of thing. And then they sort of branched out into TV, and then they branched out into New Frontier. And so we were selected in the inaugural New Frontier Story Lab because they looked at Kill Shakespeare and they saw it as transmedia. So it's comics, but we were also, at that point, we were adapting it for stage. I think we had the board game deal, where we were negotiating for the board game deal. We had a bunch of offers for film and TV. And so they're like, hey, wow, these are two plucky Canadians that want to tell their story in different mediums. And so I went there, and it was about a four-day intensive. They bring in top screenwriters and television writers, like just incredible individuals. Marty Noxon, who was the writer and showrunner on Buffy for a number of years. We had Wesley Strick, who did the Cape Fear, the Scorsese's Cape Fear. And Richard LaGravenese, who lives here in New York. And so I'm very fortunate to be able to chat with him every now and then. But to be able to sit down to an intensive one-on-one, or Connor and I with them, like story sessions. Like we're talking like 2, 3, 4, I can't remember how long it was, like 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour sessions with them, where they would break down scripts or break down story with us. And I learned so much. I kind of view that as myself as a creator. I was kind of going this direction here, and then stopped here, did the Sundance New Frontier Lab, and then all of a sudden, like it was completely life altering. And I know a lot of people find it rough because you're having these sessions with these advisors, and they're basically tearing your script or tearing your story apart. Like, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. But I loved every single moment. And every time a session we'd done, like I would just think, that is so inspiring. I can't wait to get back and redo it. Like, I want to build up. They tore the house down. I want to build the house up again and make it even better, and make it be able to withstand another earthquake or another tornado. Like, I want this, like, it's so inspiring. And so I give so much credit to everyone at Sundance, and I'm I have lifelong gratitude towards Carrie Beck, who's the one that really brought us in. She went on to work at Lucasfilm, and I think she co-created a couple of the animated series there. And everyone at Sundance, and especially those advisors, because I learned so much. I learned so much. So that was, yes, I feel like I've become a better writer, and Sundance is one of the reasons why.
So I know you did the Luke Cage story. Is there any characters in either the Marvel or DC universe that you would like to kind of take a shot at, or have a story that you would like to tell?
I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, you're not a serious comics writer if there's no characters from the inventory of DC and Marvel that you don't want to tell. Yes, 1,000 times yes on this one too. I mean, I'm not going to share with you what I have pitches in my mind. I mean, I haven't had a chance. There's one right now that I do want to approach one of the companies with, probably in the next few months, that I'm talking to with a collaborator. And it's a tribute or homage to like a series from the 70s that I'd love to do. But yeah, I mean, every character. I mean, there's so many dream characters I would love to write for. I'll say Daredevil is one, but Daredevil, I want to write an audio, just because he's blind. Obviously, I was like, he's the perfect character to write in the audio format, and I'm surprised Marvel hasn't done that. And they dipped their toes into audio, and they had a couple series which were pretty good. But I'm surprised they didn't do that. So, I mean, I actually have a pitch ready to go at any moment. So if anyone from Marvel or Marvel Digital is listening, or any podcasting company, please give me a call. No, I mean, all the characters. I mean, Swamp Thing, I've got a Swamp Thing idea I'd love to do. Superman is still, it's interesting. Batman's always been my favorite character from DC
Mhm.
until I had my son, until our son was born, our firstborn. And we had like a little onesie. A friend of mine who used to work on the Arrow television series sent me like a bunch of onesies with all the DC characters. And as soon as our son put on the Superman onesie, I was just like, and since that very moment, Superman is now my favorite superhero character. And yes, I have a pitch for comics for him, and an incredible pitch for audio. Oh my gosh, I want to tell that story in audio. I just need to get the right. I've talked to DC and the DC audio team there for a while now, but everything's on hold until the James Gunn film comes out in July, and then they said
Mm.
they can talk about this sort of stuff. So, anyways, yes, so yes, there are many characters, and not only Marvel and DC, but even like I'd love to write some James Bond comics for Dynamite at some point. So, but yeah,
I could see that.
yeah, I'd love it. Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up, if you want to give another pitch for the book coming out on April 23rd, let's do that. And then if you have anything that else you can talk about at the time, or where people, if you're on social media and
Yep.
you want to.
Absolutely. So, Romeo versus Juliet comes out April 23rd. Actually, technically April 22nd, but I tell everyone April 23rd. April 23rd is World Shakespeare Day. So Shakespeare was born on April 23rd, and he died on April 23rd. So that's why I wrote, how poetic, I know. That's why everyone celebrates it that day. So I've been telling everybody World Shakespeare Day, Romeo versus Juliet. It's an Elizabethan Western for those that haven't been paying attention, because they're wondering where Matt is. It's an Elizabethan Western, Juliet, Romeo, love triangle, all and Hamlet love triangle. It all culminates in a high noon showdown between the world's two greatest lovers, who are now the two greatest foes. It's got elements of Western adventure, fantasy, romance, and just exploration of what it means to be. It feels like a very modern story, and it's a lot of fun. I think you're going to be blessed. It's a one-off. It's a graphic novel. Stefan Toshev is the artist. He's another Canadian, incredible artist. I'm so excited to have him on the project, working with me on it. He took my hack writing and brought it to another level. And so I'm proud of it. And yeah, it's exciting. If you want to find out more about me or about any stuff that I'm doing, you can go to my website, anthonydelcall.com, and that will then send you to all the traditional links. So to Twitter, I've used Call It X. Well, I'm not on
Same.
that as much as I'm not on there as much as I used to be, for obvious reasons. So
Mhm.
it'll send you to Blue Sky, it'll send you to Instagram, it'll send you to Facebook, it'll send you all the sites there. Most of them are at Anthony Delcall, that's DELCOL, or at Anthony_Delcall. But yeah, just go to anthonydelcall.com. That'll send you everywhere. And yeah, just look for it. Kill Shakespeare First Folio, which is repackaging of the first two volumes, or republication of the first two volumes. That's now out as well. That came out back in October. So if you have been listening or watching this and you're intrigued with the original books, you can go check that out. That's available everywhere. The other thing to keep in mind is that to enjoy Romeo versus Juliet, you do not need to have read the original Kill Shakespeare books. I've created this as sort of an entry point, or a remix. I call it a remix of Kill Shakespeare. So sort of like Damon Lindelof's The Watchmen HBO series,
Mhm.
where if you've read the original tome, um, you'll enjoy the series, but you don't need to have read it, because there are new characters that kind of weave their way into the existing world. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I compare myself to not only can I rewrite and remix William Shakespeare, I can also pretend that I'm Damon Lindelof, the creator of Lost. So, but yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. There's humor in it. There's romance, and it's a great story for those that like their Shakespeare, or if they don't.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with, I would say us, but me this
I
evening.
mean, I don't think anyone that's watching or listening has even noticed that Matt's gone, to be honest. They're
But we,
like, Matt,
They might have
who
they might have interrupted the like when when we don't like we try to do every week, but sometimes our timing is off, so we start interrupting each other or starting a question at the same time. So it's
I've noticed that in the past, and I don't like how Matt's cramping your style. So you're better off. You're better off, Chad.
all right. Well, as Matt likes to say when we sign off, the world is a crazy place and horrible place, but do something good for somebody, be the change. Um, Go buy the book, support your local comic shops, and just be nice to each other. And we'll be back next week with another show. So we'll see you then.